Segregation of duties, also often found as SOD. That abbreviation usually occurs in the topic of identity and access management, IAM. So what does it mean? It's breaking down a task, very generic, to be completed by multiple persons. What is the objective of this? Of course, critical processes require 4I principle or multi-I principle. Sometimes 2 or 3 people have to approve first. Or certain processes should be split into less sensitive approval processes. So that's why we have segregation of duties, very often also in combination with privileged roles. So if you're conducting user recertification on your system, you should also look at the roles, what they actually mean in the application, in the system, in the specific module. Because often the name alone is not really a good indicator if that's a critical role or privileged role. And when you verify that, looking at the business process, trying to avoid fraud, of course, because when someone can request and approve as the same person, or he or she can manage to impersonate by applying for both roles on different accounts, for example, that's why even more split is required to segregate those duties to be able to avoid someone going the process end to end and approving some requests. It follows, of course, the least privilege principle. There's an abbreviation for that as well, and the need to know principle. So need to know as in what exactly do I need to do this job, or what do I need to know, or what do I need to have, what kind of access. But again, especially in higher positions in the financial area, like the CFO, even though he or she is the leader, still there should be a 4I principle. There should be someone co-reviewing, or someone should have the possibility to reject if there's an objection or request additional information. Privileged account management, yes. So, I mean, ideally, there comes my opinion. Instead of handling privileged account management, which is a topic on its own, we can explain it separately. But instead of handling very privileged accounts, you should always think first, how can you break it down that these accounts are actually not so privileged anymore? Because then it's not just a risk for the company, but it's also a certain burden for the person who has that privileged account. Because obviously, if you have such a privileged account and your account gets compromised, there's a significant impact on the company, and auditors or investigators will always ask, wasn't there something that we could have done better? Why was it so concentrated into one person? And definitely you don't want to be that one person. So if you're managing those rights and the privileged accounts, please look after it, that you're not putting too much burden of your business people, because it always can happen that some account is compromised. Of course, if you have privileged accounts, or you're not successful in segregating the duties properly, the only thing that can save you there is a proper sophisticated authentication, two-factor authentication, or generally multi-factor authentication, because then at least you can prevent that it is very easy to log in and very easy to abuse the system of requester and approval, maker and checker, and then bypass everything. So if you do segregation of duties, you have a few side effects, positive side effects, of course, aside from having the work of doing it. You will increase your accuracy. What does that mean? When you look at your role descriptions and your role model, or your roles and rights, your overview of the application, you may not always, as I mentioned before, by the name of the role, you may not guess what is the full blast of responsibilities. and especially where are the small nitty-gritty red zones that you should not be as that user, because when the role was designed, you have to consider smaller organizations. There's not so many people where you can segregate so much. So you obviously have, not what I'm saying privilege creeps, but you have definitely users with a bouquet of roles that they're holding just to make the business work. If you do segregation of duties, of course, you have to run through line item by line item. What does this role actually mean? Which screen can the person access? Which screen can the person see? Which field can the person modify? And that's why I'm saying that's where the accuracy comes in, because you're forced to review, once again, all the roles in detail. And that is anyway a good thing to do. You should do that annually as an entitlement review. But just for the sake also for the segregation of duties, you will look closer at every role. You will see what is the fine lines between the roles, how you can segregate it, and where you can chip in another approval process, another pair of eyes, that can verify that. It promotes, of course, transparency. Obviously, as I said, this exercise that I just described, line by line, screen by screen, field by field. Of course, you don't have to micromanage this, because you rather look at your application from a point of view where is the sensitivity and criticality. Look at the business processes as well and say, what is a critical business process? Not every single business process needs a 4I principle, that's for sure. But you can also simplify certain administrative processes, like giving access to other users. You can create groups and say the CFO gives the access to his controller and her accountants or whatever. Yeah. So therefore, you can break it down to groups and make these the leader of the group responsible for it. That makes it automatically a bit of a 4I principle. In terms of you segregate the duties of one IT admin being, again, so powerful, being able to grant everyone a certain right, because then that IT admin becomes the privileged account. So you can divide and conquer this whole situation by providing some groups and detailed slices of the whole topic. Again, that promotes transparency and avoids conflict of interest. Obviously, that's the whole objective of segregation of duties, that you're not approving something you shouldn't be, that you're not approving your own, and that helps definitely to even bring the users in a situation where they might know that they're doing something incompliant just by the design of the rules. How to manage that, maybe a few words to that. There's lots of tools, of course. Rule of thumb here is to avoid a complex segregation of duty matrix, which usually looks like role A and role B is not a good combination. Or role A and role C is also not a good combination, but role B and C, okay. Normally, if you want to keep it simple, try to slice the roles in that way that you can actually stick to the very simple segregation of duties, only one role selectable or only one role applicable. So if there's a user applying for more than one role, you have to say, well, either we terminate the first one and you get the second one, or you carefully review the second one. Do you really need it? What is the benefit for you? Does it even fit your job title? So if you do it as simple as that, then it's easier for the users to maneuver. You don't have so much thinking in terms of what conflicts with what. I understand for more complicated systems, you may have that problem that you have to create some generic roles and then do combinations out of it, just to save also time and effort to review those roles. But still, I would rather recommend you have a pointed role for a specific user type or user group, and you review that properly, and then you can have an annual review. You can classify it, even have it frequently, more frequently than annual, but at least it's a one-to-one relationship for these roles and not mixing up with something else.